Hi, today's video is going to look at all the things that prevent you from holding yourself on all fours with minimal collapsing or no collapsing into the heel of your hand or the thumb, or a feeling that you're really not supporting yourself from the center of your body. Now, I'm going to be talking about a very specific breathing pattern needed for things like planks on all fours. I am not saying that this is how you should breathe and work your stomach muscles in normal daily life. I just want to be really clear about that. There are a couple of things that you may find helpful. So, a couple of small towels could be really useful. These are just like little hand towels, and these are quite thin. So if you need to go grab something, pause the video, go do that, and then we'll come back and talk about whether you need them or don't need them. So the first thing we're going to do is just get on all fours, and you're just going to see whether any of what I described makes sense to you. So when you come on to all fours, there are some basic things that you want to get in play. Your first finger should point north. And ideally, it doesn't point north because you have to turn your hand out to do that. So that's a whole other video, but we do want the hand to be square and the first finger to point straight ahead, as close to that as you can give me. Thumbs should really look at each other. Please don't force that, but if they're right up against the first fingers, we want to start thinking about that. Lastly, notice whether you have a tendency to put one hand further forward, line them up. Then turn your attention to your elbow crease. So in the elbow crease, you have this pit of the elbow. We want that to look out over the first finger, not out over the baby finger, and certainly not in towards its partner. Once you have all of that in play, I want you to notice if you have a tendency to drop your head. Whether for you, if I could put my hand between your shoulder blades, there would be a little valley sitting in there. Now, if you resonate with that, you're probably going to notice that your front ribs are really hanging to the floor. Maybe you even feel like your abdominals are hanging to the floor. And maybe it feels for you like your bum is slightly stuck up toward the ceiling. Now, there's lots of variations of this, so I'm just talking about one particular kind. Other people won't do that, but the head is more thrown up. The back ribs are really pulled up and the tailbone is almost tucked under. So now there's almost no low back curve. We've got an exaggerated curve in the spine. We can also have a head that's very tucked in, shoulders that are overly rounded, back ribs overly rounded, and again, tailbone really tucked in. What we really want is all the natural curves of the spine. The neck has a curve that we could say drops down towards the floor. An upper back has a curve that curves more toward the ceiling. The lower back has a curve that curves more towards the floor. And they should all be in balance. Okay, come off your hands. So we're not looking for perfection, but we are looking for those places that have over-exaggerated into one position and can never get out of that. Because when you come into plank, if you can't get the breathing and the abdominals to really come hand in hand, you're always going to collapse your weight down onto your hands or into your lower back, neither of which feels good, neither is going to build any strength, and certainly not going to allow you to do any funky, exciting stuff in plank. So when you lie on your back, have your couple of towels ready. If you haven't got them, and after the video you think they'd be useful, come back and try it again. So when you lie on your back, there's a couple of things we want to play around with. For some people, when they lie down, they end up like this with the chin up and back and too much curve in the neck. Other people are too far this way with the chin rammed down towards the chest. Neither of those are great. So if you have your little towel and you roll it up and you put it into the curve of the neck and drop the head back, you want to see how that feels. Now, for me, this would be just way too much. It kind of feels like it's put me into the chin up and back. So maybe slightly less of a roll might be a better place to allow the neck to open up. If it doesn't feel good to you and it doesn't feel like it's changed anything, it doesn't feel like it's released some front of the neck muscles or relaxed your shoulders down, get rid of it. Or try it under the back of your head and see whether that's a better place for you. We're looking to soften out the neck tension and allow the shoulders to be able to fall open and back. Now, some people are going to have a low back curve that's almost flat on the floor, pubic bone toward the ceiling. And some people are going to have a low back curve that's a million miles away from the floor and pointing the pubic bone down. Both of those are going to affect one or other end of the breath. So taking your towel, so if you need one under your neck, you're going to leave it there and you're going to use towel number 2. And you're going to put that right behind your belly button, so that you're supporting the curve of your lower back. Now, it needs to sit between the top of the pelvis and towards the bottom of the rib cage. And it should allow this bottom half of the ribs to feel like they have relaxed down into the floor. If you're a very high archer, you're trying to allow your lower back to relax down onto the towel. You do not want the towel so much that it's pushing the back in that position even more. So you may have to take some folds out. If you're someone whose back is flat on the floor, you might have to put some folds in to create some space. Feel free to put in the comments any questions about this. Okay, so from here, we're going to think of everything from your collarbones down towards your hip joint as one continuous round canister that has to be filled with air in all directions. Let your arms rest by your side with the palms facing up. And as you take your normal breath in, I want you to notice what you feel moving. The same when you exhale. So don't attach any judgment to this at all, and don't try to do it. When you breathe in, do you feel this front portion of the chest just below the collarbones rising and falling? Is that the only thing that you notice? Maybe for you, you don't feel that, but this bottom half of the rib cage is where you feel all the action. Maybe you're not aware of anything in the rib cage, but you really feel the whole abdominal wall rising and falling. Now, if you're tuning into one specific place, that's where your attention is going, then potentially we have these other areas that are not coming to the party, or they're really not throwing their soul into it. We only have some part that's doing all of the work. So we're going to focus on the front first, and then we'll focus on the other parts. So place your hands onto the front of your chest. And if you place your fingers like this, so I have my fingers in the middle of my chest, the heel of the hands dropping down towards the shoulders. When you're taking a normal breath in, there is a gentle rise under the fingers that sprawls out towards the heel of the hand. And when you exhale, this whole structure begins to draw down and in. So if we think of this like a dome, as you breathe in, the whole dome expands upward and outward. It's gentle, it's subtle, but there are some breathing patterns where you're going to be lying here. This does not feel gentle and subtle. It feels like a continuous rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. Maybe it's accompanied by an audible breath. And I want you to see if you can slow it down. Let it become a little quieter, a little easier. So that there's not no movement, but at the moment you're just lying on the floor listening to me. There's nothing for your body to do except keep itself alive. So the need for oxygen is not massive right now. So maybe this is the area you need to focus on. But let's travel on down. Come down to that bottom half of the ribs. And I want you to notice what movement you feel here. So it should be similar. We still have a dome here. So when you breathe in, it's not just the front of the ribs that are expanding. It's those bits where the hands are draping down are also expanding. And when you exhale, all of that is closing down and in. And I want you to notice, do you feel any movement here? No movement? Or is this very exaggerated? You 100% know exactly what I'm talking about. To the extent that maybe this half of the ribs are overdoing it. Is your inhale matched with your exhale? So let's say that I'm somebody that tends to have a big arch in the back. Maybe my inhale is very exaggerated. I'm trying to look to open the ribs even more than they're already open. And that isn't the pattern that I would really need to practice. Maybe what I need to work on is the exhale. Maybe you want to tune into which end of the breath feels like it has more range of motion available to it. And perhaps that's the one that's going to be most beneficial for you. You might be someone where the ribs are really pulled in and down. And so for you to exhale, there's not much out breath left there. Maybe for you, you need this inhale. You need this idea of opening up the rib doors, expanding them upward and outward. Then we're going to slide further down this canister to everything between the ribs and the pelvis. And it's exactly the same. We want exactly the same thought process. That as you breathe in, there's this upward and outward. And as you exhale, there's a down and in. And I want you to notice whether there's any breath sensation here. Which one feels more obvious? Now, maybe that's the one you want to focus on. Maybe that's the one that's got more freedom in it. Or maybe that's the one that you're so stuck in that pattern, that's all that your brain can see. So if I am somebody that's got an exaggerated low back curve and the abdominal wall is always being held stretched open, maybe my brain is so familiar with that that it tries to work the muscles even harder to draw the breath in. But actually what I would really want is that exhale of letting the dome close in and close down. And so some of this is about you getting familiar with your posture and being able to focus on what you need to change what's stuck so that we can get into all aspects of everything. Then we're going to come to the lower abdominals. And this is an area that a lot of people struggle with, particularly if they've had any kind of abdominal surgery, hysterectomy, cesarean, anything like that. If you know that you have a scar, I would put one hand on the scar and the other hand somewhere else. If you don't, put the heel of the hands on these prominent front bones and space out the fingers over the lower abdominals. So same thing here. It's still a dome. When you breathe in, we still want the muscles to expand upward and outward. And as you exhale, we want them to draw in and down. Now, in some movement modalities, belly breathing is a thing. When you're breathing in, for what we're talking about, you should not be consciously pushing muscles up and out. There's not a big, huge rise of a dome muscle here. The same when you exhale. It's not a hard, tight pull in right now. You want to notice, does the rise and fall feel pretty similar? Or again, is your focus going more to one than the other? And then you want to play around and see, what do you need to do to bring balance into that? Okay, now let's think a little bit more about the side wall. Now, if you feel that there was something in what we've just done that was really relevant to you, I would pause the video. I would focus on the thing that was a light bulb moment for you. Come back to the video in a few days' time. Otherwise, we're going to bring the hands more to the sides of the rib cage now. So when you breathe in, we know this dome expands upward and outward, so you should feel the sides of the ribs expanding out into your hand. And when you exhale, the sides of the ribs should move away from your hands. And I want you to notice whether that's the case for you, because it's very common to see some people stuck in this inhale breath. They're stuck in this very wide rib position. And the exhale is what they really need to begin to work on to be able to get the ribs to pull in and down before they expand back out again. And conversely, you can be the other way, where people are really stuck in an exhale breath and there's no ability to get expansion into the side body. So just tune in. Which one do you think you might need to focus on? Now remember, the right side of your body has a liver. So that side of the rib cage may not close in exactly the same as the left side. And if it's kind of marginal, we're not going to focus on that. We're looking for that side that's stuck, that isn't moving at all. Then you're going to move your hands into the sides of your waist, between the ribs and the pelvis. And we want exactly the same here. That when you breathe in, the sides of the waist expand outward. When you exhale, they contract inward. And if you have this pattern where the ribs are really held wide open, there's a lot of distance between one side of the ribs and the other, you're going to be stuck in this wide waist pattern. And we want to get out of that by being able to work into the exhale and into the contract. Now, sometimes you have to breathe in more, go deeper into that pattern for your brain to remember what contract starts to feel like, because it hasn't been doing very much of it up until this point. You may be the other way, that you have this very narrow waist where you never get to really expand and open up. And then we're going to move down to the pelvis again. I want you to put the heel of your hand onto each of these front corner bones and just bring the fingers towards each other. More of a thought than a thing, more of a visual in your mind. But as you inhale, you're going to imagine the pelvis getting wider, just like all the structures above. And when you exhale, you're going to imagine these two bones pulling towards each other as the muscles contract. The pelvis is movable. It has joints. It's not a solid structure. And the muscles that attach in and around it will be expanding and contracting with your breath. And I want you to notice that inhale, and how as the dome expands out, there's this picture in your head, the pelvis gets a little wider. And as you exhale, it contracts and pulls back in. Now, if you're feeling the opposite, I want this to be your homework, and for you just to ignore everything else for right now. Okay, but if you're still with me, we're going to turn onto your side to come on up. And now we're going to put the focus into the back body, the one that's kind of trickier to see because we can't see it. If you are comfortable to come into this position, and you could make a stack of cushions to rest your forehead on, I want you to do that. If you're not comfortable, Can you sit more into this position? But notice how I'm not dropping my head because I don't want to compress the very place that air has to travel through. So if you're mirroring me, I'm just thinking of a wall here and the top of my head is looking at the wall. Now, when you breathe in, I want you to tune in to these back ribs, everything. And as you breathe in, can you feel the air moving the bones of the ribs towards the cloth of your top? And as you exhale, can you feel the ribs coming down away? If you are comfortable to put a hand on the back ribs, that can be very helpful, particularly if you don't feel any sensation. It can really allow the brain to come into the place that we're trying to think about. So on that inhale, the back dome does the same as the front dome. It expands upward and outward. So I should be able to feel all of those ribs have a stronger attachment to my t-shirt. And when I exhale, they drop away to some degree, depending on what you're wearing. So if you have a tight top, when you breathe in and the ribs are expanding, they would be stretching the top. When you exhale and the ribs are contracting, some of that tension would move away. Do you have any sense of this area beginning to move? And if not, this would be your homework. And then the lower back. So this rounded position can be really useful for people that have this exaggerated low back curve because it starts to help you come out of that position. When you breathe in, this lower back midsection, so everything between my bottom ribs and the pelvis, should again be able to expand upward and outward. And as you exhale, close in and down. And if you feel more comfortable with the hand there, go ahead, do it. Or maybe put something on your back like a soft cushion and see if you can feel your breath moving against the pressure of the cushion. Now, the pelvis is definitely a more tricky one, but as we said before, the muscles all attach onto the pelvis. The pelvis is going to move with the breath to a subtle degree. So you might be able to tune in to that thought that everything on the back of the pelvis, all the muscles that form the back of the hip, also can expand with the inhale and contract with the exhale. And if this is the place that you're really struggling with, this is a great position to work into to see if we can open up the back body and find the places that you're not breathing into. All right, and then bring yourself out of it. So we're going to leave it at that for now. Once you feel that you've found these missing parts and you're much more aware of breathing into them, or those of you that have a reverse breathing pattern, so when you inhale, to you it feels like the stomach muscles are contracting, I want you to really work on this video first before you go on to the part 2. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in the part 2 of how to make your breathing and your abdominals really hold your plank in place.